You've got to be kidding me, I whispered, my voice breaking as I stared at the bank statement on my phone. Every cent I'd scraped together for a down payment, gone. Where's my money, Diane? My mother barely glanced up from her tea, her expression as casual as if I'd asked about the weather. Oh, calm down, Emily. It went to something worthwhile. Worthwhile, I nearly choked. It's all gone. What did you do with it? She flicked her eyes toward Paul, my stepfather, who lounged beside her with a smug grin, stirring his coffee. Like we were discussing weekend plans. The gala, Diane said, waving a hand. We needed a bit extra to make it unforgettable. You used my savings for your charity gala. My hands shook as I gripped the phone. That was for my house. You had no right. Paul chuckled, leaning back. We're your parents, Emily. We don't owe you explanations, family shares. You'll get over it. My name's Emily Harper, and for years my mother and stepfather treated me like an afterthought in my own family. My dad passed when I was 13, leaving a modest inheritance meant to secure my future. He trusted Diane, to manage it until I could use it wisely. Instead, she treated it like her personal slush fund. This wasn't a small dip for an emergency. It was $30,000, my entire down payment, blown on a glitzy event to impress their social circle. I wasn't just angry, I was gutted. This is a story of betrayal, resilience, and taking back what's mine. Stay with me, because if you've ever had someone you trusted steal your dreams, you'll feel every moment of this, and the ending will show you what it means to stand tall. Growing up, I learned to keep quiet about Diane and Paul's oversteps. When Diane used my inheritance for emergencies, or to bail out Paul's gambling debts, I let it slide, telling myself family comes first. I was the dutiful daughter, working extra shifts at my marketing job, skipping trips, living in a cramped studio to save every dollar for a home of my own. That money wasn't just cash. It was years of sacrifice, late nights, and dreams of a place to call mine. But that morning, seeing my account drained, something snapped. I'd trusted Diane to honour my dad's wishes, and she'd betrayed me for a party. I want it back, I said, my voice trembling but firm. You're paying me back every cent. Diane rolled her eyes, setting her cup down with a clink. Don't be so dramatic, Emily. You're not on the street. You can save again. It's not about that, I shot back. You stole from me. That money was mine. Paul smirked, enjoying the tension. Technically, it was your dad's money, and we're your parents. We decide what's best for the family. The word family stung like a slap. They'd weaponized it for years, guilting me into silence. But this wasn't family, this was theft. I'm not letting this go, I said, rage steadying my voice. Do what you want, Diane said with a shrug, sipping her tea. But don't expect an apology. We did what we had to. I stormed out of their house, my chest tight with fury. My best friend Sophie was the first person I called, pacing my apartment as I spilled the story. They're unbelievable, she said, her voice sharp with disbelief. How do they justify this? They don't care, I said, bitter. To them, I'm just a resource, not a person. What are you going to do? She asked. I didn't have a full plan, but the fire in my gut told me one thing. I wasn't backing down. I'm getting my money back, I said, even if it means dragging them to court. By the time I hung up, my anger had sharpened into resolve. Diane and Paul thought they could dismiss me, but they'd crossed a line, and I was done playing. The good daughter. The next morning, I called the bank to confirm the nightmare. Diane had accessed my savings using a joint authorization I'd foolishly left in place years ago, when she'd convinced me it was just in case. 3 weeks before the gala, she'd drained every penny without a word. Is that legal? I asked the bank manager, my voice tight. It's murky, he said cautiously. The joint account gave her access, but if the funds were intended for you, you've got a case. I'd talk to a lawyer. I thanked him, jotting down details, my mind racing. My next call was to Rachel, a lawyer Sophie recommended. Over coffee, I laid out the story, the account, the theft, Diane's flippant response. Rachel's pen flew across her notepad. "This isn't just wrong, it's potentially criminal," she said. "Even with joint access, there are limits, especially if you can prove the money was yours. We can build a case." Hope sparked in my chest. "What's the first step?" "File a police report to start a paper trail," she said. "Then we'll send a demand letter for repayment. If they refuse, and I bet they will, we escalate." The idea of police involvement made my stomach churn, but thinking of the overtime I'd worked, the dreams I'd deferred, steeled my nerves. Diane and Paul thought I'd roll over. They were about to learn I wouldn't. Filing the police report felt surreal. At the station, I sat across from an officer, showing him bank statements Rachel had helped me gather. "So, your mother accessed your account without permission and spent the money on a personal event," he summarised, scribbling notes. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "For a gala I didn't know about until it was gone." He nodded. "This qualifies as unauthorised use of funds. We'll open a case and contact your parents. Keep your lawyer in the loop." Leaving the station, I felt a flicker of triumph. For once, I wasn't letting them skate by. 2 days later, Diane called, her voice dripping with outrage. "What is this, Emily? The police showed up about your stupid savings." "It's exactly what it looks like," I said calmly. "You stole from me. Now you face the consequences." "Stole?" she scoffed. "We're family. That money was for all of us." "No, it was for me," I snapped. "Dad left it for me, and you had no right to touch it." Paul's voice cut in, smug as ever. "You're really doing this? What, you gonna sue us?" "If I have to," I said. "You did this to yourselves." Diane laughed, bitter and sharp. "You're delusional if you think this'll work." "We'll see," I said, hanging up, my heart pounding but resolute. Rachel was already moving, drafting a demand letter outlining the $30,000 they owed and setting a repayment deadline. As expected, they ignored it. "They're digging in," Rachel said at our next meeting, "which is perfect. Their defiance strengthens our case." "What if they keep refusing?" I asked. "We escalate," she said, her tone firm. "With the police report, bank records, and your dad's will, we're solid. They can't outrun." This. Her confidence fueled mine. For years, Diane and Paul had made me feel small, but now I was the one with power. The tipping point came when Paul posted a photo from the gala on social media, grinning with a champagne flute, Diane in a rented designer gown beside him. The caption gushed about their unforgettable night and thanked their loving family. My blood boiled. They were flaunting my stolen money, parading their betrayal. "Enjoy it while it lasts," I muttered, saving the post as evidence. When I showed Rachel, she smirked. "They're handing us ammunition. Let's make that toast. One they regret." A week later, the hammer dropped. Rachel called as I sipped coffee at my kitchen table. "They've been served," she said, satisfaction in her voice. "The demand letter's now part of the case file, and the police are issuing a formal notice of investigation." I leaned back, relief mixing with anticipation. "How will they react?" "They'll panic," Rachel said. "And panicking people either fight harder or fold. Either way, we're ready." Sure enough, Diane called that afternoon, her voice frantic. "Emily, what are you doing? You're dragging us through the courts over a misunderstanding?" I kept my tone even. "This wasn't a misunderstanding, Diane. You stole from me, and I'm not letting it slide." "We didn't steal," she shouted. "We borrowed it for the gala. You should be proud we pulled it off." I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "Proud? You flaunted my savings to your friends while I'm starting from scratch. That's not family. That's greed." Paul grabbed the phone, his condescension thick. "You're overreacting, kid. No one's going to take your side. We're your parents. We've sacrificed for you." "Sacrificed?" My voice cracked, anger surging. "You took what wasn't yours and mocked me when I called you out. The only thing I owe you is accountability, and you're getting it." I hung up, my hands shaking, but my resolve ironclad. That evening, the police visited their home. Rachel, had tempered my expectations. No arrests, just a formal inquiry. But I couldn't help picturing their smug faces faltering as officers explained the gravity of the situation. Diane called again, her tone shifted to desperation. "Emily, please," she said, voice trembling. "You didn't need to involve the police. We can work this out." "We tried that," I said. "You laughed and told me to get over it. Now it's out of my hands." "This could destroy us," she pleaded. "Do you want that for your own mother?" The guilt trip stung, but I saw it for what it was, manipulation. "You destroyed our trust," I said quietly. "You did this." A week later, we faced off at a mediation table. Rachel sat beside me, her presence steady, while Diane and Paul shifted uncomfortably across from us. They looked different, less arrogant, more rattled. The mediator, a calm woman with sharp eyes, opened the session. "We're here to address the unauthorized use of Emily's savings. Emily, would you like to start?" I nodded, my voice clear. "That money was for my house. I saved for years, and Diane and Paul took it without my knowledge for a gala. When I asked for it back, they refused and belittled me. I'm here to reclaim what's mine." Diane tried to interrupt, but the mediator silenced her. When it was her turn, her voice wavered. "We didn't mean harm. We thought the gala was good for the family. Emily's young, she can save again." Rachel cut in, her tone razor-sharp. "You drained her account without permission and dismissed her. Concerns. That's not a mistake, that's theft." Paul opened his mouth, but the mediator's look stopped him. "The evidence shows the funds were Emily's," she said. "You have two options, repay immediately or face a civil suit, possibly with criminal charges." Diane's face flushed. "We don't have $30,000 lying around. It's gone." "Then find a way to repay," the mediator said, "or we proceed legally." Silence hung heavy. Paul leaned forward, voice low. "What about a payment plan?" Rachel glanced at me. "That's an option, but Emily decides." I studied them. Not the untouchable parents they'd pretended to be, but two people cornered by their own actions. "A payment plan's fine," I said, "but it's in writing, and one missed payment voids the deal." They nodded, their confidence shattered. We left mediation with a signed agreement, and as I stepped outside, a weight lifted. It wasn't just about the money, it was about proving I wasn't invisible. Rachel clapped my shoulder. "You nailed it, they won't forget this." The first payment hit my account a week later, a small victory that soothed the ache of betrayal. Sophie came over that night with pizza and wine. "To never letting anyone trample you again," she toasted. "To standing up for myself," I said, clinking her glass. As we laughed, I realised how much had changed. I'd spent years prioritising Diane and Paul's needs, thinking family meant sacrifice. But this fight taught me boundaries weren't selfish, they were essential. Diane called days later, her tone hesitant. "Emily, I just wanted to check in." I saw through it. She wasn't concerned. She was testing the new dynamic where she couldn't control me. "Is this about the payments?" I asked, neutral. "No," she said quickly. How are you?" "I'm fine," I said, "and I expect the next payment on time." She sighed. "We're family, Emily. I hope you can forgive us someday." I stayed silent. Forgiveness wasn't hers to demand, not after what she'd done. "I have to go," I said, hanging up. Over the next weeks, I rebuilt. I tightened my budget, took on freelance gigs, and kept my eyes on the future. The dream of a home wasn't dead. Diane and Paul's payments, combined with my efforts, were bringing it back to life. Each deposit felt like a step toward reclaiming my power, not just my savings. Months later, scrolling through real estate listings, hope bloomed. I bookmarked a cozy house just outside the city. Simple, but mine. The process was slower, but the goal was tangible again. Diane and Paul kept paying, though not without complaints. They tried negotiating lower amounts, citing hard times, but Rachel shut them down. The terms were clear, Pay or face court. They complied, grudgingly. Diane's calls grew rare, always cloaked in false concern. "We've learned our lesson," she said once, voice tight. "Can't we move forward?" "Moving forward means owning what you did," I said. "That starts with paying me back." She hung up quietly, and I felt no guilt. I wasn't bending to ease their discomfort anymore. Sophie and I celebrated my progress over dinner one night. "You're different now," she said, smiling. "Confident. It's awesome." "Thanks," I said, grinning. "I finally get that standing up for myself doesn't make me the bad guy. It makes me me." Weeks later, I drove by the house I'd bookmarked. I parked across the street, picturing my life inside, my furniture, my memories, my future. It wasn't just a house, it was proof of everything I'd overcome. My dad had worked hard to give me a foundation, and though Diane and Paul tried to steal it, they'd failed. I knew he'd be proud, not just of the home I'd built, but of the strength I'd found. As I drove away, I smiled. This was my life, and no one would take it from me again.